Hello, sleepy heads. Tonight the lamps are Egyptian clay, not Roman bronze. Small saucers of oil breathing a thin ribbon of light over alabaster jars. Coal sticks, and a shallow bowl where malachite and galena wait to be ground to green and black. No parade, no trumpets, just Alexandria's harbor hush, salt in the courtyard air, and the quiet rhythms of washing bowls and folded linen, where natron, scented oils, and habit become a kind of home armor. Behind a painted door, the room keeps its own steady clock. A jug tilts, a linen strip is set aside, and softened fibers, papyrus or cloth, answer the month's tide without ceremony. Practical, private, and older than any throne. Someone laughs at the sting of castor oil on a nick. Someone else dusts red ochre, then draws coal to cut the glare and the dust. Part remedy, part ritual, as natural here as breath. If these gentle histories ease the night, a soft like or a gentle subscribe is enough. A nod that carries far in the still hours. Now dim the screen, slow the breath, and walk with the lamps through rooms where hygiene, periods, and beauty are one quiet craft, and where Cleopatra is rumor and perfume on the same warm air. Congratulations! You've woken up on the Nile's edge at dawn, where the air already tastes like a decision someone else made in the night. Good news, the breeze is moving. Bad news, it's carrying a braid of perfume, sweat, fish, and powdered dust that somehow finds the back of the throat before it finds the skin. A servant pads in with a jar of cool water hugged to the hip. The clay sweats, the lip sweats, the room sweats. In the corner, two wigs stare from their stands like quiet animals waiting for instructions. One fly arrives on schedule, lands on the rim of the basin like a tax collector, and rubs its hands together as if it knows a secret about the river that it blesses and betrays in the same voice. Ready? The servant asks without asking and tips the jar. You take the river on your shoulders like a confession. It runs fast and mean down the spine, turns overnight dust to mud, and then to paste in the small of the back. The floor catches what the body can't. The water stops with a hollow plug, and for a second there is silence. Then the first chorus of gulls, children, hawkers, donkeys, and a distant hammer reminding everyone that stone only listens if you repeat yourself. This is not a bath so much as a truce. You pat dry with linen that remembers every wash day argument and still forgives. Natron waits in a shallow bowl, sharp, alkaline, nosy. It stings wherever yesterday won. Rub it into the hands, into the feet, under the arms, and the skin says a short, rude prayer. The salt pulls at the sweat and leaves behind a kind of squeak the fingers can hear. There's a line between clean and flayed, and natron likes to stand on it tap dancing. Oil next, always oil. It shines, it seals, it tells the sun to take a number and wait. You pour a coin of it into the palm and press it into the forearms, the collarbones, the places the linen rubs raw by noon. The perfume is hiding in there, sweet resin and citrus, peel and a whisper of something that used to be a flower before it was asked to be useful. You are not washing so much as lacquered. The dessert is a thief. The oil is a lock that mostly works. On the table, the day's small army, A stick of coal cut blunt at the end, black and soft as a promise, to track a dark line along the waterline of the eye. Not just theatre, glare guard, fly deterrent, a rumor of medicine. It lifts the gaze from squint to deliberate. You smudge, blink, and the mirror blinks back, copper polished enough to contain a patient version of your face. The one that knows better than to trust mornings. The razors sit there acting innocent. One twitches in the light, a sliver of bronze sharpened with enthusiasm and memory. Depilation is the Empire's favorite lie, smoothness as peace. The line paste dries chalky where it went on. On a better day, it lifts hair like a magician's scarf. On a normal day, it scolds the skin for wanting to be left alone. The blade follows with all the mercy of a tax audit. Yes, there's a trick to the angle. No, it doesn't matter if the blade was in a generous mood yesterday. You do what you came to do and try not to invent new language for familiar sting. The wigs yawn. One is heavy, dark, deliberate, a curtain of order for when the day needs a headline. The other is lighter, flirtatious, says market rather than audience. Both are cleaner than any real head can stay in heat like this. The truth is everyone knows the math. Shaved scalps dodge lice. Wigs cheat the sun. And hair that grows in belongs mostly to poets and mourners. You pick the heavier one because you want the world to see that you can carry it. It settles onto the oiled scalp like a well-behaved storm cloud. The band bites. The weight is a secret, but only until noon. There is a rumor that a good wig weighs less when the right person is looking. This rumor is a liar. The scented cone. It has opinions. You nestle it at the crown where the wig will hide the base. A small mountain of perfumed fat shaped like a sly flame. It pretends to be solid. It is already plotting. In the heat, it will slump, sigh, and slowly write love letters down your neck all afternoon. Somewhere, someone will pretend not to notice while their eyes follow the trail. It's less a deodorant than a story that refuses to stay put. Teeth. The chew stick is a frayed papyrus. Wand cut to the right length to make a point. The mouth is already a small war. Bread ground on stone. Leaves a rumor of grit between molars. Herbs and resins fought last night's feast and declared victory. But the tongue knows better. You scrub. The mint or iris or whatever the vendor swore by this week blooms in the nose. For 3 minutes you are a person who believes in fresh starts. Then you rinse and remember, the Nile gives, the Nile takes, and the chew stick is trying to referee. Good news, the river is right there. Someone says in a voice that might be yours. Bad news. So is everything that uses it. It's not cynicism. It's weather. Upstream, someone pours, someone rinses, someone prays. Downstream, someone drinks, someone swims. Someone pretends the gods keep separate accounts for separate acts. You tip a splash into the basin for the floor spirits and call it balance. Clothes, linen that forgives but does not forget. White, because heat passes through white like a rumor. The folds remember yesterday if you help them. Pressed by hand, encouraged with a board. A little natron persuading the stubborn places to lie flat. The collar will stiffen by midday. The belt will wander if ignored. And any hem within 30 heartbeats of a courtyard will flirt with dust. You oil your wrists again because you want the sleeves to slide, not argue. The room is awake now, comb clicking through wig fibers that have their own weather, bangles lifting small breezes onto skin. A quiet inventory of where does it itch versus where can you reach. In the doorway, the morning argues with itself, clear blue above, gold pink at the line of the river. Brown ware carts have already proven that. Yesterday's street plans were a suggestion. The themes announce themselves without knocking. Cleanliness is not a moment. It is a ritual performed with both hands and one eye on the sun. The lice understand persistence. You counter with the razor and the wig, and the resignation of someone who has already had a conversation with a knit comb and lived to tell it. Rinsing is frequent because heat is frequent. Dust is a poet, reciting the same stanza to every surface until it is loved or wiped away. Scent is not accessory. It is status, shield, signature. A household smells like its luck. A body smells like its schedule. A low joke to yourself as you fasten the last clasp. Tonight's fragrance will be tomorrow's laundry problem. You picture the wash day, jars pulled from the river, natron in the tub, a rhythm of slap, twist, ring that turns sweat into steam and linens into pride. Someone will lift a sheet to the light and decide whether you honored them by the way you dirtied it. Civilization is a smell before it is a skyline. The fly returns to the basin, surveils the oil's rainbow, and leaves a blessing that is not a blessing. You swat at air and call it victory. Outside, a neighbor coughs. A fishmonger introduces his catch like it needs an agent. An old woman beats a carpet into the morning until the carpet understands its role. The servant tilts what's left of the water into the courtyard jar. The jar swallows and does not say thank you. One last look in the copper mirror. The coal is a road the eye can travel without getting lost. The wig sits like a verdict you chose. The scented cone has already softened by a whisper. You take a breath that belongs to perfume more than to air, and open the door on a day that has been expecting you since before you woke. Cleanliness here is both public performance and private triage. It's a ceremony that says, I am a person, and a patch job that says, this climate is a comedian with a mean streak. The river is the god you can touch, and the hazard you can't ignore. You will rinse again by noon, again by dusk, and again in a dream where the water is always cooler than it is in your hands. Step into the lane. The breeze retrieves a rumor from the tannery and shares it equally with the spice store, the temple, and your sleeve. Smile anyway. The day is a negotiation you plan to win on points, not by knockout. And as the city rearranges itself around your footsteps, keep one truth in the front pocket. The body keeps a list of non-negotiables, and it plans to present them shortly. The door swings shut behind the morning you just survived, and the day starts making new messes faster than the basin can forgive. Good news, the city believes in cleanliness. Bad news, it believes in it so hard that it takes 3 different kinds of work to keep up rinsing, scraping, and pretending. For some, that means 2, 3. Even for quick pour-overs, when the heat climbs and the dust turns personal. For many more, it's the fast cloth wipe, a square of damp linen dragged across neck, underarms, feet, and fate before a market errand erases all evidence. Soap and suds isn't the hero here. Oil and scrape is. A small lake of oil in the palm. A brisk rub that lifts grit like confession. Then a reed or blunt blade coaxing yesterday off in curling, grey ribbons. It leaves the skin glossy, sealed against wind that wants to drink it. It leaves the soul suspicious, because nothing this smooth stays smooth for long. Perfume, meanwhile, is economics in a bottle. Who oils, who sweats, and who pretends not to notice says more about rank than a signet ring ever could. An expensive resin announces itself 3 steps before its owner and lingers in the doorway after she's gone, working unpaid overtime on her reputation. A cheaper blend does its best and then clocks out at noon, replaced by the honest smell of effort. Vendors swear their recipe is priest-approved, date palace-tested, river-proof. Everyone nods. Everyone lies. The market is a chorus of claims, and the heat is the choir director. Hair is a logistics problem disguised as a choice. The most comfortable answer is the blade. Shave it down to the quiet. Let the scalp breathe. Deny lice their little empire. But dignity wants a silhouette, and the sun wants mercy. So wigs step in like understudies who know all the lines. Keeping them clean is its own calendar. Shake the dust. Comb the fibers, air them in shade. Feed them a whisper of oil so they shine without sliding off. Knit combing lives in the background like the sound of a loom. Slow, patient, cruel only to the uninvited. On skin, depilation promises the moon and invoices the rash. Dyeing paste whispers silky smooth until it dries into why are we doing this? And the bronze razor, no matter how kindly it was sharpened, remembers it is metal and you are not. Every bathroom has a little shrine to hope. Every thigh has a story about an angle that wasn't right. Mouths carry their own chore list. The papyrus chew stick is a wand with only one spell, scrub. Its frayed crown squeaks, a long enamel that still holds a souvenir of breakfast. Bread ground on a stone that sheds sand like gossip. Bread grit is the uncredited dental assistant, abrasive, relentless, unpaid. After the scrub, there's the resin mint, honeyed pellets of frankincense, cinnamon, and whatever the apothecary had the nerve to call breath courage. They melt into the tongue and perfume the sentences to follow. In low-ceilinged rooms where air moves like molasses and opinions move like arrows, breath is social currency. A kind word loses weight when the listener is blinking through your lunch. Eyes and skin play defense all day. Coal draws that thin black road along the lids, not just for beauty, but to bully the sun and confuse flies that treat the face like a public square. Mineral pastes sit on the shelf like small desserts in bowls, chalks and clays to calm rashes. Pull heat from a patch of skin that's been lectured by linen all afternoon. Sun, sand, and salt write their names on every cut. And nothing is small when the air is this dry. A scratch is a negotiation. A blister is a parable. And even a hangnail can ruin a prayer. A pinch of incense crushed into folds of clothing serves as portable courage. When the crowd presses and the day leans heavy, the smoke memory rises from the hems and says, "Keep going." Pests refuse to be insulted. Flies clock in like co-workers who know management can't fire them. They argue with your eyes, your cup, your patience. and the dog that is pretending to be brave. Ants arrive when the oil spills a fingertip on the bench. Mosquitoes preview the night even at noon. A beetle with a divine name wanders through and receives a salute it did not earn. Sweat signs its name down the spine in a script the shirt understands. And then there's the dust. Oh, the dust! Fine as spite, eager to turn any sheen of oil into a paste that could grout a temple. You watch a woman pause in the shade, press two fingers to her arm, and feel the grain of the city under her own skin. Without looking up, she drips a new coin of oil into her palm, spreads it like a rumor, and keeps walking. Maintenance, not miracle. Modesty and survival share a tense marriage in linen. Layers promise respectability and deliver an indoor climate nobody ordered. The top layer keeps off looks. The underlayer keeps off sun, and both conspire to keep in heat. In the alley where the breeze remembers to be generous, someone lifts a hem an inch for 5 seconds and buys an hour of sanity. In the courtyard where eyes have nothing else to do, someone keeps every fold perfect and pays for it in salt. Etiquette is a game that sweat plans to win. Rinses make a rhythm you can dance to or be dragged by. Morning to start human, midday to avert collapse, evening to claw back the day's dirt, and sometimes a midnight splash, just to hear the tin basin say enough. When the mind won't, each pour is smaller than it should be because jars are heavy, and time has opinions. Each wipe is faster than it needs to be, because work doesn't. Clap when hygiene takes a bow, but it adds up. The oil keeps stealing minutes back from the wind. The coal keeps the glare from stealing your temper. The chew stick keeps your laugh from turning into a weapon. The wig keeps strangers from learning your scalp like a map. Perfume's economy returns at awkward times. Walk past a doorway and learn who ate well and who ate fast. Enter a room and meet someone's afternoon by smell before you meet their eyes. There's generosity in a shared scent and cruelty, too. A neighbor lends a fingertip of resin on festival days. A merchant leans in with a discount, and a cloud that says he can afford not to sell to you. Reputation is fragrant. It fades slower than truth. The tools fail, and then they try again. Razor slips, line lies, oil betrays a shoulder seam. Coal smears grief onto a laugh. The cloth meant to dab shines the mistake like a medal. You swear softly, adjust, and move, because the day will not apologize for the way it was built. And the body must keep being a body in a place that takes that personally. Watch the street for a minute. A child with a shaved head runs past, scalp shining like a small moon. A single sidelock announcing an age that still gets to be unbothered. A priest crosses, smooth as a sealed jar, smelling like an argument between myrrh and humility. A fishwife fans herself with a palm frond that has seen wars, chuckles, and then bites a thread loose from her sleeve with teeth. That survived 3 droughts and a dozen. Loaves ground with more stone than flour. The city cleans itself in public and gets dirty in private, and then flips the script. Always. Forever. As long as the river pays rent. There's a joke the old women tell while there. Hands are wrist deep in the wash basin. Silky smooth is a story. The razor tells when the rash is out of earshot. They laugh, snap a sheet so white the sun blinks, and return to the real business. Lifting tomorrow's dignity. Out of today's water, the men will pretend they don't hear. The children will learn the rhythm long before they learn the words. By late afternoon, everything smells like cooked decisions. The scented cone you placed with such optimism this morning has slid half an inch south and signed your neck with a waxy autograph that will be read by your pillow tonight. The wig grooves have made treaties with your scalp. The coal has survived 3 blinks too many and still insists on handsomeness. You consider another rinse and do the arithmetic. The jar is heavy. The feet are loud. The sun is lower than it swears it is. Then you do it anyway, because the heat is a gambler and you refuse to stake your temper on a bet the day wants. When it's done, when the last drop leaves the jar and the last sigh leaves the chest, the mirror says something kind but not untrue, presentable, survivable, almost pleased. The city, being itself, will try again to undo this within the hour. The desert keeps the receipt. Even after bathing, it will ask for proof of purchase at dusk and again at dawn and again. In the middle of a dream, where water is a friend who writes back. So keep the oil near, keep the cloth damp, keep the resin where a hand can find it in the dark. The cosmetic peace treaties will carry you to evening. After that, the body will submit its list of non-negotiables: blood, birth, the quiet, stubborn care that starts where perfume gives up. The day gets louder as the sun climbs, and what started as personal maintenance turns into public math. Clean isn't just a feeling here, it's a signal. A courtyard fills the same way a basin does. One pour at a time, according to rank, habit, and who's allowed to admit they're tired. In one house, a private basin waits in a shaded room. Water poured by hands that never leave a mark. An attendant measures the day in ladles, oils, and folded linen, moving like a soft answer to a loud question. Down the lane, to families share a jar the size of a small promise. It lives in the corner like an extra relative, heavy, unavoidable, often empty at the worst possible time. Someone does a quick cloth wipe and calls it a victory. Someone else pretends that breeze counts as a rinse. The politics is simple and exhausting. Who fetches water and who pours it? Who smells like resin and who smells like effort? Scent marks rank long before a seal ring does. Expensive perfume arrives in a room first, sits down second, and speaks last. Cheaper blends do their best, then get shouldered aside by reality before midday. The nose reads status faster than any scribe reads ink. Religion loves purity. The street loves proof. At the temple, water is purpose, poured with hymns, counted in steps, set apart from the world's fingerprints. The priest's linen is so clean it looks like it would shatter if you spoke too loudly near it. Incense unspools a golden ladder into the rafters, insisting that smoke can do what buckets can't. Then someone leaves the precinct and the city reasserts itself in one breath. Fish brine waltzing with myrrh, donkey and date cakes, roasted grain and sun-baked drains. Ideals and alleys meet nose to nose. Incense covers what it can cover and looks the other way about the rest. It isn't hypocrisy, it's weather. Ritual scrubs the soul. The street scrubs the skin and sometimes loses. There's choreography to all of this. and everyone knows the steps. Enter a room scented first, speaking second. Let the perfume make the introduction. Let the coal hold the gaze long enough for a sentence to find its footing. Gifting oil is affection and obligation braided together. Here, wear this, and remember me when the afternoon forgets you. A thumbprint of resin on a friend's wrist is a promise that their name will arrive before their sweat does. A courtesan's signature blend maps alliances more clearly than most contracts. A wife's choice of citrus or wood tells the household whether the market was kind or merely endured. Fragrance maps relationships, like the Nile maps the country. All roads lead through it, and every bend means something. The headline is easy to write, the cleanest of the ancients. The footnote is harder and smeared with fingerprints, hands, labor, heat. There is no soap and savior here. There is oil, scrape, rinse, repeat. Linen beaten against stone. Jars lifted until the shoulder learns a new alphabet. Combs that have suffered more oaths than any courtroom. The miracle is not that people smell like flowers in a climate that wants to cook them. The miracle is that dignity survives in a world where the wind steals ours and the dust steals. Patience and both return only when they feel dramatic. Call anything disgusting from far enough away, and it sounds like analysis. Stand close, and it looks like improvisation. Shaved scalps aren't vanity. They're a truce with lice that think rent is optional. Wigs aren't decadence. They're portable shade and status stitched together. Natron's sting isn't barbaric. It's the price of feeling like a person. When the day is trying to turn everyone into salt. A scented cone sliding, a resin mint melting, a quick cloth wipe that saves a conversation. These are not quirks. They're tools in a place that measures time with sweat. Watch the water politics play out in miniature. A girl is sent to the river with a jar that outweighs her confidence. She walks upstream for cleaner luck and downstream for quicker mercy. Calculates which ant will be angrier and chooses the one who forgives with a joke. In a different street, a woman who will never fetch a bucket in public nevertheless checks the weight of the household basin by habit. She will not say it aloud, but she hears the future in the hollow sound it makes. In both houses, people who are above the chore still live in the echo of it, because hygiene is infrastructure built directly on the body, maintained by whoever's hands are nearest. The city has a nose and a memory. It remembers who borrowed oil and never returned the gesture. It remembers which spice stall whispers cedar on slow days, which bakery smells like celebration even when it's only bread, which tanner has stopped pretending his trade is a rumor. It remembers the priest who smells like thunder without rain, the scribe who smells like ink and ambition, the porter who smells like everyone's errands and nobody's thanks. Every scent is a footnote to a life. Every footnote is doing more work than the headline. And yes, somewhere a scribe will still write that. Egypt is orderly and pure and beloved of the gods. He won't be wrong. He just won't be comprehensive. Purity here is not an absence of grime. It's a discipline that meets grime with method. It's habits that refuse to quit, combs that do not get bored, cloths that carry yesterday's stains like a veteran's medals, oils that keep a thin border between a person and a climate. that thinks personal boundaries are a joke. So if the morning was a private treaty with natron and oil, and the afternoon was a public negotiation with breeze and opinion, then the evening is a vote. Did the rituals hold? Maybe enough. The cone slid, the wig pinched, the coal smudged where a laugh escaped, and still the mirror says, intact, present, allowed to speak. That is dignity carved from maintenance, not magic. And as the lamps bloom and the day steps back from the window, the body clears its throat to remind everyone what comes next. Fragrance carries a room, but it does not carry a life. The true ledger lives under the perfumes, cycles that keep their own calendars, blood that does not ask permission to arrive, births that reorder households and silence even the street for a moment. Hygiene may dress the surface, but care runs deeper, through midwives' hands, through linen folded for emergencies, through powders and prayers kept within reach when the night gets opinionated. Tonight's scent will be tomorrow's laundry. The river will forgive only what the hands convince it to. And the social contract, this scented, stratified, polite war against heat, will pause long enough to make space for the body's non-negotiables. That's where we're headed next, out of the mirror, into the ledger, past cosmetic peace treaties, into the economy of care. The afternoon doesn't ask for permission to change the rules. It just does. The heat softens the day like wax, and somewhere between the courtyard and the market a folded square of linen, tucked under a kilt decides to remember gravity. The first hint is a slow cool that is not comfort. The second is a pull where fabric meets skin, a quiet prophecy of chafe. There's a glance over the shoulder for witnesses, a quick measure of the nearest shade, and then that precise shuffle every woman learns. Not panic, not shame, just a negotiation with the body on a schedule that ignores calendars. A quiet corner appears behind a stair, beside a stack of jars, behind a tapestry that smells like last year's incense and this morning's bread. The prayer is small and practical, not on the white stone. Not on the white stone. The kit is whatever the house could afford, and the morning could remember. For some, it's rolled linen, softened, folded, tied, tucked into place and changed as often as time and jars allow. For others, softened fiber, reed, or a makeshift wad that tries its best until it doesn't. The fortunate swap often. Rinse quick, re-roll. The not fortunate practice endurance and humor, and keep moving. Cramps answer to rubs of oil warmed in the hand, to a cup of beer that pretends to be medicine, to an amulet that hums as much for the mind as for the womb. No miracle promised, but sometimes the edge dulls, and that is victory enough to walk home under. Stains are not just stains. They're logistics. Laundry becomes damage control with a face. Natron persuades, sunlight argues, elbow grease testifies. Red on white is a loud conversation in a city that adores white linen like a moral. So red day jokes get passed around. Like contraband and compassion. Don't sit on the pale cushion. The bench at the corner shrine is treacherous. If the market woman hands over citrus for cheap, it's not pity, it's professional courtesy. A friend presses a fresh fold of linen into a palm with the same ceremony used to pass. Perfume on festival days. In both cases, the gift says, Carry this and forget that anyone else exists for a minute. Work does not stop. It splashes a little and keeps apace. Chores come with their own taboos and workarounds. Knead bread, but lift the dough high enough to save the apron. Fetch water, but skirt the tile no one can afford to scrub twice. Stand in line at the mill, but remember the bench is gossip with a memory. The field does not care about cycles. It asks for back and hands and patience. It offers dust and sun and a heartbeat to march by. The market only cares about coin and speed. The shrine cares about purity, at least publicly, and even then the real world slips in under the door. A priest looks away at the right moment. A matron quietly unfolds a piece of woven reed matzo. Another woman can sit without leaving truth behind. There's a way of walking that saves you. Shoulders back, hips practical, steps measured to the lift of the hem. Breath steady, jokes ready. The calculus is constant. How close to home? How many corners? How many eyes? How much time before the next change is not optional? In the cool room with the household jars, someone has already set aside a small basin for this hour. Not labeled but understood. A cup of warm water, a strip of linen, a clean wrap to fold back into clothes, and composure. Maintenance, not apology. Threshold crossed, cheeks cooled. The day takes back its usual sharpness. Some cycles hurt like a law written in the wrong ink. Those days the body argues louder. Oil becomes a story the hands tell. Small circles below the belly. Low on the back, down the thighs where the ache plants flags. The warm beer offers its nap. The amulet its rhythm. The cat in the doorway its permission to cry once, and then be done. There is grace in the way a house moves around a woman. Who needs a minute? A sister runs the errand. A neighbor wraps a pot to keep it warm. A child plays louder to lift the quiet. Other cycles pass like a note under the door. Seen, handled, not discussed. Both count. Both move the days along. The city has its rituals of secrecy that are not secret at all. A laundry woman looks at a sheet, nods like a judge, and says nothing except the price and the pickup day. A shopkeeper passes a wedge of cloth and calls it scrap to hide kindness from pride. The spice seller, who has opinions on everything, says clove for the stomach, mint for the mood, and pretends he didn't see the wince that answered the bell. At the well, one woman trades to turns in line for an uninterrupted 5 minutes on the stairs near the fig tree, and nobody pretends not to understand what that barter really purchased. Humor defangs shame. Red Day meets White City, and the punchline writes itself. If the gods wanted secrecy, they shouldn't have invented limestone. Someone jokes that the laundry goddess is the busiest deity in the pantheon. Someone else says no, it's the weaver, because the only thing the city loves more than a secret is a fresh hem. Laughter buys breath, breath buys time, time buys composure, and composure buys the next hour's peace. In the back of the mind, the map of shrines and thresholds redraws itself. Some temples bar the door with a rule, some with a look, some with a pretend that spares everyone the trouble of a speech. Other places make room. The goddess who cares about mothers more than about marble. The household altar that is a flame and a habit. The riverbank that was never pure and never pretended to be. The body and belief negotiate. Both leave with a little less dignity and a little more mercy. By late afternoon, that tucked linen has been folded, rinsed, folded again enough times to count as a small career. Skin itches for air and gets linen instead. Fabric rubs and gets called names in 3 languages. Salt dries on the back of the knees where sweat and effort took lunch together. There's a moment in the market between bargaining and burden where the world goes. Quiet enough to hear the pulse in the ribs. And in that blank space a woman decides to go home now, not later. Because she has learned the hard way that later is a joke. The day tells when it wants to win. Does anyone write this down? Not really. The ledgers keep other numbers. Grain, labor days, jars of oil, births, deaths, taxes, repairs. But there are unofficial records everywhere. Faint stains in laundry. That didn't quite surrender. A corner of the courtyard claimed for 5 days a month by custom and kindness. A stone warmed by the same body at the same hour like a private treaty with time. Friends carry the rest of the archive in memory and mimed advice. Fold like this. Walk like that. Sit here, not there. Give it 5 minutes and breathe through the second wave, because the second wave lies. The balance point is a tightrope between comfort and shame. Except shame doesn't actually get a vote unless everyone agrees to hand it one. The true authority is the body, which is punctual, loud when ignored, and disinterested in civic decorum. It keeps its own calendar and posts the notices without asking. The city can scold, praise, or pretend. The cycles still arrive, lay down their work orders, and oversee compliance like bureaucrats with spears. So the day returns to itself, the linen tucked again, the kilt settled. The mouth rinsed with resin that tries to sweeten everything it touches. The hands oiled to prevent another argument between skin and fabric. The sun leans west. The market thins. The home opens its door to the person who has done a full day twice. Once for the world and once for the quiet war under the clothes. The mirror will be kind tonight. Not because the face is flawless, but because the face is honest. And when the basin hears the first splash, it will sound like relief louder than water. The schedule wins. It always does. The city bows to it without admitting defeat. A seat offered here. A line jumped there. A joke angled sideways so no one bleeds pride in public. And tomorrow, or the next tomorrow, the linen will fold again, and a hand will reach for oil without looking. And somewhere a goddess will smirk, because maintenance is a prayer that never ends. The house knows before anyone says it aloud. The way footsteps gather at one doorway, the way someone folds a cloth twice, and then twice again. The way the air changes, heavy, sweet, and alert. Inside, a small room is steeped in myrrh and breath. The window is a slit of heat. On the floor, squatting bricks warm the solace of bare feet. A practical altar for the work about to happen. Someone hums low, and then the hum becomes a chant that threads itself through the first contraction like a thin rope offered across a river. The midwife's hands hover, then rest, then move with the calm of a person who has seen everything go wrong and most things go right. She doesn't waste words. She doesn't waste anything. Pain is a tide that doesn't care how many times it's been described. Positions shift to meet it where it is, kneeling forward over a cushion. Upright, feet planted on those sun-warmed bricks. A supported squat with arms behind the shoulders to open what needs opening. Sometimes a birth stool. A chair with a hole that looks like a dare and acts like an instruction. Oil glints on knuckles and the curve of a belly. Fingers trace circles low. Press gently where the ache bargains. Another pair of hands slicks the inner thighs to keep skin from burning. Where it doesn't need to. Someone burns an herb bundle in the corner and calls it fumigation. Someone else opens a jar and calls it a door for breath. Heat gathers, cord, blood, and time braid themselves into a task that requires no permission from the world outside. At one sharp, ridiculous moment, the mother laughs. A jagged spark that splits the fear long enough to let the room breathe. And in that second, everyone in the room remembers they are a team. The chemistry here is half kitchen, half temple, and wholly learned. Honey waits in a small bowl, gold and stubborn. A salve ready to pull rot from a cut and shame from a wound. Salt stands by, not for taste, but for cleaning, for closing, for the old trick of making the body remember it is a sealed country. Herbs sit sorted by scent and story. Something to warm, something to cool, something to persuade a cramp to stop acting like it owns the place. Goddess names are whispered like instructions, not favors. Hippo-headed protection for the threshold. Lion-aside courage for the push. A cow-eared mother for the minutes afterward. When the room forgets how to be quiet, ritual meets muscle memory at the exact line where the next contraction arrives. The midwife decides when to act, when to wait, when to tell a joke, when to be the joke, when to be stone, when to be water. She times with breath, not with stars. A contraction climbs a ladder, hesitates, then flings itself forward. The body answers by widening, not because it wants to, but because it must. The midwife's hands hold the boundary. The mother's hands grip the cushion. And another pair of hands, apprentice hands that remember last year's terror, hovers in the air, ready to be told where to be useful. There is a sound that happens when everything lines up, less a cry than a key turning, and then the room tilts. Cord, blood, heat, and a sudden, slippery stranger, with rage for lungs and a face like a promise. No one will be brave enough to repeat exactly. The midwife moves fast without hurrying. Clear the mouth. Rub the back until the first thin wail becomes a full-throated insult to silence. Tie and cut the cord with competence that needs no witness. The chant, shaken but intact, finds its thread again. This is the moment where the afterworld drifts close. The room smells like iron and myrrh, and something older than both. Amulets that were decoration a minute ago become work. A carved image is touched in a certain order. A line of words gets said, not because anyone thinks gods are deaf, but because people forget how to speak when they are scared. And the words are a bridge back to the body. Warm cloth presses to the perineum. A hand explores the belly the way a sailor reads a current, waiting for the tug that says the afterbirth is ready to negotiate. A pot waits by the bricks for what must be collected, checked, nodded at, declared complete. The midwife's eyes flick once to the mother's color, once to her pulse, once to the little pool on the floor that should be the size of a story, and not a lake. Aftermath is its own weather system. Postpartum bleeding is a rule with 1,000 exceptions. Today it is polite, steady, not pouring. Enough to remind everyone that new life charges its fee at the door. Fever is the enemy whose breath they are always trying to hear before it speaks. The midwife roots around it with clean cloths, salt water, honey if a tear complains of the world. Rest that is more command than suggestion. The belly is bound, not to erase anything, but to help everything remember where it belongs. Milk arrives on its own schedule like a river that was promised wet season and took the joke too seriously. The first letdown is half relief, half curse. The baby negotiates a latch with the urgency of a monarch and the coordination of a drunk bee. And then, finally, the tiny machine works. The room moves in quiet concentric circles around that sound. Sleep should come like a law. It doesn't. The mother folds into it and then hovers just outside. As if the body is a room the mind isn't sure it's allowed to leave unlocked. The midwife pads the edge of the mat with extra cloth, tucks a charm near the pillow, for the aunties, for the ancestors, for whoever is listening, and sits on her heels long enough to be certain the silence is ordinary, not ominous. The apprentice updates the room the way a scribe updates a ledger. This many cloths, soaking in the jar, this bowl rinsed, this bowl not, this pot to be carried out, this oil to be warmed if the ache returns, this cup to the mother's lips when she surfaces next. What looks like magic from the doorway is systems, practice, and a will that doesn't take no for an answer. There are signals in this room that no one outside it will ever see. A twinge in the voice that means watch her color. A tilt of the chin that means more heat. A palm pressed flat that means don't speak now. A sudden laugh that means we won this minute. The humor that split fear a while ago returns for a curtain call. Someone makes a soft joke about the baby's hair already knowing how to argue. About the way the bricks are warmer than some husbands. About a goddess who better be watching because everyone else is busy. Everyone breathes easier than before, though no one admits it in case the air hears and changes its mind. These rooms are schools that never close. Apprenticeships are carved out of nights that didn't end, and mornings that began mid-sentence. A girl becomes a helper, becomes a hand, becomes a midwife when, in a moment like this, she sees the line between waiting and doing and steps across without tripping. The ledger of this work is not ink. It's memory, scars, quiet funerals, louder blessings, tiny bracelets, and names pressed onto tongues that will carry them further than any papyrus. The miracles and the losses both count. Neither gets written properly anywhere men check. The only archive that matters is the next call, when the same hands will lift another fear and set it down as safely as they can. By the time evening fits itself into the window, the room has learned how to be itself again. Myrrh lingers like a guest who knows when to leave. The bricks cool. Someone carries the bowl to the courtyard with the care of a scribe carrying taxes. The mother drifts, wakes, drifts, listens for a cry and finds it. Offers herself again to a hunger that has no words for thanks. The midwife ties her bundle with the neatness of a person who can be woken at any hour and still count correctly, then pauses in the doorway, hand on the lintel, To say and name the gods always here first. Not a deity. Hers, she earned it. The house goes quiet after a birth in a way that isn't silence. Just everything listening harder. That's when the discreet questions start to move. Soft-footed. Wrapped in cloth. Carried to windowsills where seeds wait like tiny judges. A clay bowl holds barley in one corner, wheat in the other, and a woman leans in to pour her future in the only currency she has today. The test isn't loud. It's patient. Wet earth, a sunlit sill, a week of glances that pretend to be casual. Hope keeps score with a fingertip. Practicality keeps the water jug close. In another room, onion or garlic sits on a plate because somebody's aunt swears the breath will tell what the belly won't. The pact between them is straightforward. Hope may sing, but practicality holds the door. Desire doesn't wait for paperwork. It shows up in the doorway with warm hands and no interest in the market's opinion. And for a moment, the house is a better animal than the city allows. Pleasure is an interruption that heals. Still, even heat has a calendar. Couples negotiate, spacing with the tools at hand. Work that's too hard for a few nights. Prayers that buy time without admitting that's what they're for. Fatigue that votes no before anyone speaks. A handful of risky. Recipes circulate like contraband. Bitter herbs and copper rumors. Heat in the wrong place on purpose. A pessary made from something that makes the midwives curse. Whispers weigh risks in the same breath they ask for them. The truth is simple and heavy. Some solutions are a second problem dressed as mercy. The windowsill tests sprouts when it wants, not when it's convenient. One morning there is green where yesterday was only the idea of green. Somebody laughs too quickly and then stifles it like a sneeze. Not from shame, but from superstition. You don't scare the future with loud joy. In another house, nothing grows. The bowl goes back to being a bowl. Practicality lays a hand on hope's shoulder and says, next month. The bargain holds. Keep living. Keep working. Keep counting days with a private string nobody else can see. Time has rooms inside it you only find by getting older. There's a season when nights run hot that isn't the weather. When sleep breaks into shards. When the body, which has always been the best accountant, starts closing ledgers without warning. Menopause arrives like a letter you recognize by handwriting and open anyway. It brings to things braided together. Freedom and grief. Freedom from the long negotiation with linen. The calculation at every doorway. The constant need to be to people. Public face and private truce. Grief for the doors that close. The chances that now live only in other people's arms. The calendar that stops singing a song. You learned to dance to even when you hated the tune. Elder women turn skill into status here. They move from being mysteries to being maps. What they know becomes infrastructure. When to let the seed bowl go. When to hold a girl's head. While she weeps for a result she didn't get or did and can't afford. Desire doesn't retire. It changes keys. In houses that have seen too much, tenderness becomes a discipline, not a luxury. Touch collects context and still manages to be just touch. Men who paid attention learn new languages with their hands. Women who lived through nights that wouldn't. And teach comfort like a craft. How to lie on the cool part of the mat. How to breathe around a knot in the belly. How to laugh in bed without apologizing to the walls. The city can ignore a lot. It cannot erase that. Disgusting is a word people standing far away use when they're actually afraid. Up close, fluids are information. Pain is data. Every stain on linen is a message. Too soon. Right on time. Something's wrong. Everything's fine. Every cramp is a telegram the abdomen wires to the head. Rest now. Walk now. Heat now. Go get her now. The body keeps a calendar even if the city pretends not to notice. And those who decline to read it out loud still read it with their hands. Midwives, aunties, neighbors who learned the rhythm by living next to it. The arithmetic of fertility is quiet, but relentless. Days counted, cycles tracked, sprouts watched, breath tested, amulets worn smooth by thumbprints that never asked a priest to notarize the prayer. The market sells cures and sells stories about cures. It also sells a mirror that belongs to everyone and no one. When the talk turns to queens, the mirror grows teeth. A woman at the top of the pyramid becomes a neighborhood of myths. She bathes in milk every night. She seduces with a single drop of perfume. She never bleeds like the rest of us. She bleeds more than anyone. She is magic. She is makeup. The truth is smaller and stronger. Queens bargain with the same. Arithmetic as mothers in courtyards and girls on windowsills. They have better jars and trained hands to pour them. More rooms to be private in. More perfumes to choose from. But the ledger still belongs to the body. The marketplace took that private arithmetic and sold it back to the city as legend. Because legend is easier to wear in public than the honest work of being alive. So here's the handoff, as clean as anything in this dusty, fragrant place can be, from rooms where seeds sprout under a watchful gaze to holes, where trade wines carry scents with names, from onion breath lore whispered between women who trust one another to stories about a sovereign's face written by men who never carried a jar. The private calendar keeps turning regardless. The germination bowls dry out, get put away, get brought back. The nights cool, or don't. The window catches light. The skin catches touch. The house catches its breath. And somewhere in the city a mirror waits, eager to make a person into a myth and a myth into a product. While the women who know better walk past it on their way to water seeds, fold linen, and do the quiet arithmetic that always tells the truth. The mirror is honest tonight. Cole's black road is straight, not severe. It does what it has always done. Throws shade at glare. Confuse flies that would write their signatures on the sclera. Make an idea look like a plan. The face is not a fresco to be worshipped. It is an instrument panel. Lids softened with smoke. Mouth warmed with oil. Skin glossed where the lamplight can't resist it. This is less beauty than logistics. Shine where attention helps. Mad where questions gather. Scent where memory begins. Back to the milk. Imagine the reality of a daily bath with it in this heat. Teams of runners fetching fresh donkey milk before dawn. Guards annoyed at the clatter. A room turned to porridge if a meeting runs long. The cost alone would smell like scandal before it smelled like anything else. And even if the coins were endless, the city's nose is not a fool. A mistimed bath would tell on itself from the street. There's a legend that claims whole herds followed a queen just to keep up with her bathwater. There's a reality that claims a clever woman doesn't. fight the climate with theater she can't control. She fights it with jars that keep their promises and rituals that get along with physics. Humor has a seat at this table too. The cost of smelling like a goddess is not the price of resin. It's the price of precision. Get the timing wrong, and you smell like a courtyard in July. Get the mix wrong, and you smell like a prayer box married a fishmonger. The joke lives in the margin. A queen can afford missteps. A city never forgets them, so the timing is rehearsed like a play. The blends are tested on wrists that have known worse, and the bath. Water, not milk, waits at a temperature that flatters judgment, not just skin. Servants become chemists under different names. One pinches a drop between fingers, rubs until it wakes, decides if lemon should stand beside frankincense or sit behind it. Another warms oil to the heat of a palm, not a lamp. Skin hears the difference. A third tests the room the way sailors test a wind, nose tilted, eyes narrowed, measuring whether the air can carry a conversation without reminding anyone that outside there are fish and ropes and men with opinions. The city is an orchestra no one conducts. You tune to it or you are noise. Here's the shape of a working night. A small basin for the face, water scented just enough to make fatigue blink instead of argue. Cloths wrung through a lactic solution on rare evenings when the weak earned it. Quick pass along cheeks, jawline, shoulder caps. Then oil to soothe the negotiation. Hair is a wig tonight, which means scalp oiled for mercy. Band adjusted to avoid the brutal seam. Perfume dotted along the hairline, where warmth makes a soft weather. Hands are a different country. Nails. Oil to tell a story of an hour that will not be spent on ledgers. Knuckles glossed so gestures look like gifts. Ankles get their own sentence. Citrus there, because a step should speak before the mouth does. And scent as strategy, truly. Citrus opens the door. Resin holds the room. Myrrh gives gravity to a sentence that would otherwise skate. There's a political map in those layers. Greek minds in love with clarity hear citrus and lean closer. Egyptian priests in love with continuity hear myrrh and feel the floor. Soldiers who live in metal and sun smell cedar and remember shade. The blend is not accidental. Neither is the way it fades. A meeting should end before the bass note does, not after. Leave the room a trace of authority, not a cloud of need. If a mistake is made, and mistakes are made, it becomes comedy before it becomes scandal. A too warm jar tips into spoil. A bath runs long and runs wrong. A room that should have smelled like deliberate choices smells like donkeys voting. Laughter is a solvent, oils tonight. Someone says with a diplomat's smile. And a story is born that will die kindly. Staff will have a new rule by morning. Milk belongs in bowls and legends, not tubs and schedules. The mirror blinks. The city answers with a horn from the harbor. Time is a hand on the back, moving everything forward whether it's ready or not. The woman in the room checks her own work, the way a scribe checks columns, line by line, blend by blend, intention by intention. If beauty is here, it is a side effect of control. If seduction is here, it is a side effect of intelligence. If myth is here, it is because the market prefers stories that bathe alone to truths that require staff and skill and a profound respect for the temperature of milk. When the door opens and the room performs what it was told, notice how every sense is a messenger. Sight confirms what scent suggested. Voice lands where oil invited it to. Hands shake. Bracelets whisper. Cedar steps out from under myrrh for one moment and then returns to its place. This is not a spell. It is a system. It survives the heat because it does not fight the heat with fantasy. It negotiates. It wins by points. Out in the corridor, a page boy passes a servant. Who is carrying the jar with the milk that didn't make the cut? They share a look that says, in different dialects, not tonight. The page boy grins. The servant rolls the jar between palms like a fact. Somewhere, a storyteller will say the queen bathes in miracles. Somewhere else, a woman who keeps. Her household solvent will nod and say the only miracle she recognizes is a plan that smells right before it speaks. So let the myth keep its costume. The work happens here. Bottles labeled by nose. Cloths wrung at the right hour. Oils chosen for what a conversation needs, not what a rumor wants. The sea exhales, the lamps agree, and a city that has never been patient prepares to listen to a woman. It cannot dismiss, because her entrance has already told it how. Tomorrow, the market will sell the myth again. Tonight, the milk sits this one out. The milk sits out of the story, and the room moves on to the work that actually holds a face together. Start with the line that taught the world how to look. Cole's Black Road. It's a double agent, part glare shield, part medicine, part trouble. Drag it along the waterline, and the sun stops shouting quite so loud. Draw it thick at the corners and flies get confused long enough to bother someone else. Some sticks carry a whisper of antimicrobial magic. Others carry metals that do no one any favors over time. Medicine and mascara sharing a handle, arguing after dark. Pillows learn the truth first. Every sleep leaves an outline like a signature. Ambition stains. So does survival. Hair tells a quieter truth, and it starts at the scalp. Shave it. Not because the gods demanded it, but because lice don't negotiate. A bare head is a clean ledger. A wig is the climate control you strap on top. They are costumes and shields, stagecraft and shade. Maintenance day feels like building a ship on your head. Combing fibers that snarl like politics. Airing the pieces in a wind that wants to steal them. Warming oil to the temperature of skin so shine doesn't become slide. Pins bite. Bands argue. The weight remembers gravity better than everyone else in the room. You rehearse the smile that says none of this hurts. Somewhere in the corner, depilation keeps grinning like a lender. Line paste promising silky smooth, then charging interest in rashes. The razor asking for the exact angle and punishing anything less. Skin gets its lessons out loud. Mineral scrubs a braid and appease chalk and sand and ground. Stone coaxing yesterday off until the day. Agrees to start over. Natron does what natron does. It stings. It purifies. It leaves a squeak that feels like virtue and looks like effort. Over that. Oil? Because the wind is a thief and the sun is a bureaucrat, and both need bribes. Teeth join the program with their own theater. Resins stand in for mints. Melting into breath that can survive a small room and a long debate. The joke no one says on record. The most dedicated dentist in the empire is bread ground on stone, every loaf. A quiet polish. Every bite a grit scrub you didn't ask for. It works until it doesn't. And then the chew stick takes the night shift. Cole's stick returns to the stage, this time as an audit. Some recipes are green with malachite memory. Most are black with the Nile's serious face. Galena, soot, fat, resin. All whipped into a paste that glides on like certainty. The line is geometry that flatters anatomy. Lift the outer corner, and a gaze becomes a verdict. Thicken the lower edge, and a story becomes law. The risk is baked in. The benefit is immediate. It's not magic. It's a tool that pretends to be one. And sometimes that's enough to get a treaty across the table. Wigs are their own economy. Real human hair braided with plant fiber for backbone. Perfumed not to flatten noses, but to smother the realities of storage and sweat. A good wig is cool where shade lives and warm where dignity sits. A bad one is a headache with a part. Care takes a village. One person to wash and dry, another to oil and comb, a third to fit and fix. On festival mornings, the procession begins. Cap snug, band down, temple curls placed like punctuation. Perfume dotted at the nape where heat will make a small weather. You feel taller because you are. Your neck learns a new arithmetic. Your expression steps up to meet the silhouette you've built. Skin and teeth. Again, because repetition is the real ritual. Natron under the arms. Natron on the cloth. Natron where a strap will rub history into skin if you don't bargain first. The scrub is a liturgy. Small circles at the shoulders. Firm lines down the calves. The careful tender work where fabric refuses to be polite. Then oil, sesame, moringa. Whatever the merchant swore was pressed by blessed hands, and not some cousin with a stone. Over it all, a scent that can hold its own. Resin for depth, citrus for edge, myrrh for memory. Breath matches the blend. Resin pellet melting under the tongue. A little honey to carry the note. You're not hiding the day. You're translating it. No one person makes this happen. There's a team, and the room knows their steps. Attendants who know when to be gentle and when to be quick. Merchants who appear with ingredients that prove where the trade wines have been. Apothecaries who can make a paste that heals and a paste that flatters, and sometimes both in the same jar. Every bottle is a receipt from somewhere else. Frankincense that remembers a ship's deck. Cedar that remembers a mountain. Cinnamon that remembers a road carved by stubborn feet. Power is not just wearing these places. It's being able to call them by name and make them arrive on time. Behind the face is work, and the work is where the myth refuses to look. The door opens on a woman who appears effortless because effort has already been spent. Cole's line has been negotiated between medicine and metal, beauty and hazard, function and flair. The wig has been argued into compliance. The scalp has been treated like a country under siege, and then liberated with oil. Skin has been scrubbed into truce. Teeth have been bargained into kindness. Breath has been built like a sentence. None of this asks permission from legend. Somewhere in the process a laugh sneaks in. Because this is all a little ridiculous, and that's fine. Silky smooth, someone teases, nodding toward a patch the line remembered too well. Ship on ahead, someone mutters, pinning a curl that thinks it's a tide. Ambition on the pillow, someone sighs, looking at the coal outline that will never come out. These jokes are maintenance for the spirit, same as oil is for skin. Without them, the mirror turns cruel. With them, the mirror tells the truth and doesn't gloat. If you want to read the politics, read the ingredients list. Who can summon resin that never traveled in a cheap jar? Who can afford the good natron that stings less and cleans more? Who smells like a port even when the sea is 2 days away? The face is a ledger balanced nightly. The sticks and pots and cones are entries. Proof that trade works, that staff are skilled. That time was invested where attention will be paid back with interest at dinner. So the work behind the face is not a secret. It's just unglamorous. Rinse, grind, mix, test, adjust, try again. The result looks like inevitability, but that's only because failure was exiled an hour ago by people who know how to argue with heat, wind, and hair. The city will remember the line of the eye and forget the names of the hands. That kept it straight. That's how cities are. The hands know better, and tomorrow they'll do it again. Because the sun does, because the wind does, because a public face is a bridge that has to hold even when the river underneath it is in a mood. The workshop teaches humility. You test on the inside of the wrist, the nape, the hollow at the collarbone where warmth writes faster. You watch the blend age on skin as the hour bends. Some perfumes stand up and speak too soon. Others never learn to speak at all. The right ones tell time. They begin with a greeting, carry a thesis, and leave the room with a conclusion that feels inevitable. The wrong ones are autobiographies no one asked to read. You throw those out and start again. Craft over magic, always. Intellect over indulgence. The mirror is not a wishing well. It's an instrument panel. It reports how the lamp reads the cheek, how the coal line holds under a blink, how the wig's curve changes the posture of the mouth, how the scent inhabits air that also contains tar, salt, and the rumor of fish. The adjustments are small and relentless. Lift this note by a breath, lower that shine by a thought. Move a curl half a finger to change what a sentence does when it lands. Theatrics without intellect are costume. Intellect without theatrics is a letter nobody opens. She builds entrances the way a builder sets arches. First, test the weight of the room. Who's in it? What it wants? Where the windows fail. Then, set the first span. A top note that anticipates the question and answers it with hospitality. Next, raise the support. A heart that holds attention without insisting. Finally, lay the keystone. A base that anchors memory and pays the bill in the mind. The trick is leaving before the arch collapses into perfume for its own sake. The second trick is walking back through later and still being welcome. All of this sits atop trade like a throne on carpentry. Bottles are receipts from caravans and ships. Each ingredient carries a distant climate inside it. Choosing them is politics. Favor this merchant, and you strengthen that city. Favor that resin, and you echo a temple's preference. Even the length of a scent's tail says something about the state. Excess or restraint, opulence or precision. She curated herself the way she curated alliances, selectively, with a memory for who brought what, when, and why. And because the world is not made of rooms with polished tables, there's a pivot waiting, as there always is. Dignity isn't the luxury, it's the craft, the beauty that survives the corridor, and the courtyard is the kind that knows where it's going and why. A face prepared like strategy, a scent that works as language, an entrance timed to kindness, not domination. That kind of work is hard to paint into a myth, so the market simplifies it into a woman dipped in miracles. Let it. The people who have to breathe in real air know better. Step outside the palace and the perfume thins, as it should. The truth of drains and heat takes over the conversation, and the city resumes its rightful volume. Fish, bread, sweat, tar, donkey, incense, sun on stone. The same wind that carried a base, note across a marble floor now carries laundry steam and an argument about price. The craft doesn't fail out here. It changes targets. It becomes survival again. Oil against dust. Coal against glare. A resin pellet for breath in a room too small for two thoughts. That's the handoff. From curated air to civic weather. From theater to maintenance. Tomorrow the lab will smell like cinnamon and decisions. And tonight the street will smell like what it always does. Work. The myth can keep the spotlight and the sales. The method walks home through alleys that ignore legends and attends to what endures, drains, heat, hands, and the unglamorous intelligence required to move through all three with grace. The palace air thins into city weather fast. Perfume bows to tar, and the wind remembers it has other errands. Midday in the lane is a living argument. Heat shivers above. The mud brick like a mirage deciding whether to be kind. Fish hang from lines and dry into the future. Beer mash burps a warm, grainy breath. Dung and incense arm wrestle in every breeze and end in a draw. Laundry slaps stone with the rhythm of applause. Each smack a vote for dignity against dust. Somewhere a jar knocks a door jam and loses. Somewhere a seller sings prices that rise with the sun. And every surface learns a new layer of the day. Homes here are made of memory and mud. Walls remember every summer and crack where last year's patience gave out. Rooftops remember bodies, sleeping shapes, lined up under stars when the air finally forgives. A mother's back propped against a low parapet. A child's heel drumming a private song into the night. Courtyards do the cooking, the gossiping, the weaving, the arguing. Kitchens are clay ovens, grinding stones, and smoke that perfumes the bread whether it asked to be perfumed or not. Privacy is an accent, not a room. One curtain, one corner, one moment when the courtyard looks away. Doors learn to close softly because thin walls make thick listeners. Even a whisper acquires neighbors. Water isn't fetched, it's earned. Jars bite into shoulders with teeth of clay, leaving bruises that read like addresses. Upstream is a dream, cleaner, pricier in time and legs. Downstream is a compromise the afternoon forces on anyone with other chores. Who carries and who waits is a politics the city understands without writing. Girls who will grow into women, who walk like balance beams. Boys who learn the weight before they learn the reasons. Men who carry when the well goes mean. Women who carry because the day says now, at home. A cup is filled with a flourish that pretends the river arrived inside. It pure and innocent. Everyone drinks the performance along with the sip. Rooftop sleeping is a choreography. Mats roll out just after sundown, arranged by habit and hierarchy. The night's first wind signs its name across the skin and pretends to be generous for an hour. Down below, the courtyard glows dull. Coals taught to act like stars. Morning will bring the rooftop migration in reverse. Bedding folded fast before sun turns everything into proof of laziness. Inside, rooms are short on windows and long on shade. Thick-walled and deliberate. Set up to keep noon at the door like an unwelcome guest. Richer houses paint their walls and hide a garden where water speaks quietly. Poorer houses decorate with the business of living. Baskets, jars, tools, a clay figurine on a shelf that listens. The lane has characters. A fly that believes it owns the house patrols. The threshold with a landlord's swagger, pausing on the rim of a bowl like a signature. A neighbor's goat has perfect timing and no manners. It steps into the doorway whenever someone balances something impossible and announces itself with a bleat that sounds like laughter at the wrong joke. A cat naps on the only pile of folded linens that matters. A boy with dust on his shins argues with a pigeon and loses gracefully. A woman threads a needle with her breath, and the day behaves for 10 seconds. Out of respect, beer is a useful smell if it's yours, a rude one if it isn't. Clay vats burp in courtyards, while a paddle keeps the mash honest. Bread and beer are a duet. Grind, knead, heat, wait, swallow, repeat. The heat finds the dough finds the oven finds the house and blesses it whether it deserves it or not. Fish dry into salvation on rooftops and insult the air while they do it. Incense makes apologies where words won't help. Dung fires remember every animal by name. They burn hot, they burn efficient, and they burn a little into the furniture. Walls need tending like elders. Mud plaster goes on smooth in the cool hours, smearing and smoothing until cracks forget what they were planning to become. Rain is a rumor for most of the year, then a bully on the day it arrives, fingering the mortar, testing the edges, asking how much the roof remembers about last season's repairs. Roofs are beams and reeds, and a skin of mud that needs renewing whenever the sun wins. Too many afternoons in a row. Everyone in the lane knows when a house is due. Ladders appear. Neighbors stage unsolicited debates about technique. And the children rehearse falling off things without actually doing it. The water walk offers theater. The upstream line is full of people with errands that can't be rushed. Priests' assistants whispering rituals to jars. Housekeepers working their alibis into conversations about flow. Old men selling advice for free because that's their favorite price. The downstream line is commerce and speed. Fishmongers rinsing. Tanners not asking permission. Children baptizing their ankles in defiance. In between, the quiet walkers have learned how to make a jar look heavier to discourage help, or lighter to invite it. At the home threshold, a basin receives a splash for the floor spirits, and the rest for the living. Clean is a gradient. Everyone agrees to call it a category. By afternoon, the lane has taught everyone its manners, and the house returns the favor by pretending. Certain things aren't happening in plain sight. Clean has rules here. So does going. The options are practical, humble, and honest about their limits. There's the stool over a pot, a wooden or limestone seat with a polite oval, and a clay container tucked beneath, half filled with sand to keep the worst impulses quiet. There's the sandbox, literally, and it does its best. Sit, cover, forget until forgetting becomes a smell with an opinion. There are shared pits at the edge of a neighborhood, a compromise between privacy and maintenance, where dignity is preserved mostly by the etiquette of looking away at the right moment. And there's the unblinking river, ever available, ever judgmental, carrying secrets downstream at a speed that teaches humility. The rule everyone knows and no one writes. When someone is balancing a jar, you pretend they're carrying a basket of figs. When someone slips behind a reed screen, you become briefly fascinated by a wall. Maintenance is a second job layered on top of the first. Pots need emptying before they announce themselves, which is always 5 minutes earlier than anyone hoped. Sand needs changing before it rebrands as a dune with regrets. Pits need topping with earth and hymns. One for the nose, one for luck. And even then they argue with hot weather. Whose chore is it depends on who lost the last argument with the day. A boy learning balance the hard way. A girl in a hurry who will perfect the fast, clean trip in one summer. A servant whose sense of timing keeps a household's pride intact. Why it's late is a calendar of reasons. The bread rose, the water line doubled, the sun bullied sense out of everyone, and how a hot wind makes an argument out of the air well. That's when even a quiet pit finds a voice. The city runs on disease math whether it likes the numbers or not. Rinsing is risky when the water has already met everyone. And in summer the river tells the truth about upstream without shame. Beer becomes a better friend than water not, because anyone's trying to be merry at noon, but because boiling and fermenting do the kind of work a prayer can't complete on its own. A cup of small beer is a treaty between gut and climate. A dip at the bank is a coin toss the body sometimes loses. The line between festival and fever is thinner than a reed. Matt, one latrine poorly tended, one pit overused, one day of we'll do it tomorrow. And the neighborhood learns how fast a celebration can become a symptom. In the background, illness watches. It favors days when the river is thick with stories, when the pits are neglected, when the beer ran out and the water looked trustworthy. Midwives know the signs first, stomachs complaining in a chorus, fevers rising like a rumor, wells tasting like old coins. They nudge heads towards safer cups, scold pits into obedience. Send boys with jars to that side of the bank because upstream is a direction and a prayer. The thin line holds because people hold it. None of this is elegant, and that's the point. Toilets here try their best because everything does. Walls against heat, roofs against rain, oil against dust, people against the day's indifference. Dignity isn't a marble room with a promise. It's a wooden stool with a plan, a handful of sand with good timing, a neighbor who looks away at exactly the right second. The city's nose will always have opinions. Today, for once, it may have a compliment. And when the afternoon leans into evening, when the air stops making an argument out of existing, the chores will catch up to the odors. The pits will accept their blankets of earth. The pots will be emptied with the efficiency of practiced mercy. The lane will smell like supper again. Stew, bread, a pinch of incense, clean cloth drying in a shy breeze, and the pride will return to its proper size, modest, shared. A quiet nod to a day held together by people who refuse to let good enough become goodbye. The lane doesn't fall quiet after chores. It changes keys. What was an argument at noon becomes a chorus by evening, and the city gives the nose an exam it either passes or learns from. Start at the corner where spice stalls square off against tanners. One breath is cardamom, cumin, coriander grinding themselves into a golden cloud. The next is hide and tannin, sharp as a retort, stubborn as a bill. Temples answer with incense and roasted meat, sweet smoke that climbs straight up, as if it has appointments with the gods. While fishmongers speak the language of the river in past tense, dawn offers the cleanest breeze, a small and generous thing that slips down. Alleys like a rumor and makes every house believe it's special. By noon, that same breeze has a memory and a temper and brings everyone's business to everybody else's door. Ritual cleanliness floats above practical filth like a hymn above a marketplace. A priest swings a censer, and the air behaves, sweetening long enough for the faithful to stand closer than comfort and call it devotion. Then the censer moves on, and the drains remind the street that gravity has never cared about hymns. People adapt with choreography. The body knows by heart. A prayer that doubles as a breath-holding exercise. A nod that signals step into the incense wake. A sideways pivot that lets a stranger pass the bad corner without naming it. Purity is a schedule. Filth is a fact. Dignity is the bridge built daily between them. Smell draws a social map faster than gossip. Elite courtyards try to smell like gardens. Citrus skins drying on trays. Rose water sulking in bowls. Damp earth coaxed into coolness by patient hands. Until the wind decides to be democratic and drags a tannery's autobiography across the potted palms. Alleys stay honest as open pots. They'll tell the truth about fish day, about a pit that needs earth, about a stew that's thinking about generosity. A painted doorway may promise lily. A single gust may deliver donkey and die and the warm. Human fact of a roomful of bodies solving problems with sweat. For families, dignity lives in maintenance nobody praises out loud. Invisible labor keeps noses from becoming alarms. The jar hold one more time so a rinse can be a rinse and not a wish. The pit topped and tamped before it grows a voice. The vat skimmed and the cloths turned so the courtyard smells like bread and effort instead of defeat. Heat and insects make treaties and then break them 5 minutes later. People counter with oil, screens, smoke coils, and a vigilance that looks like routine. Until the day someone forgets and the house remembers why routine exists. A clean floor is a public artifact. A well-timed scoop of sand is public health. Time of day rewrites the verdict. Morning is lavender and clay cool rooms. Wet stone, the hopeful sting of natron. Fresh-cut herbs bruised between fingers. Midday is metal and breath and ambition. Ovens that forget their manners. Jasmine bullied into the background by work. Evening is cumin and stew and lamp oil. Laundry giving back the sun it stole. Beer that promises sleep and sometimes delivers. Night is tar and tide and someone's perfume threaded. So thinly through the dark that it feels like a rumor trying to remember itself. The same corner delivers for different cities depending on the hour. The same house offers for different truths depending on the wind. There's a civic pride reserved for rare victories of the nose. A latrine that doesn't announce itself. A drain that gurgles instead of sulks. A festival that smells like flowers longer than it smells like people. For once, people walk by and pretend not to notice how relieved they are. They notice. They will tell the story tomorrow with their eyebrows. And then they will bring sand when it's needed. Because miracles have to be maintained, or they become anecdotes with an odor. Elegance here isn't the absence of disgust. It's craftsmanship in spite of it. The same hands that pour perfume into a queen's pulse. Points scrub the floor where the jar broke the next morning. The same city that burns incense at dawn. Will salt a drain at noon and laugh while doing it? Because laughter buys breath and breath buys time. The nose test is daily and democratic. Everyone takes it. Everyone cheats where they can. Everyone grades on a curve that forgives heat and applauds effort. If there's a lesson worth carrying out of these streets, it's this. Civilization is not a spotless room. It's a practiced truce. Oil against dust. Smoke against rot. Sand against shame. Remade each day by people who know exactly how hard it is to keep a place livable and do it anyway.